Let's begin.
Don't hit the button.
Hola, ¿cómo está?
How goes it, good friends? Wherever you are watching this, however you are watching this or listening to this beautiful podcast. Yeah, I said watching, and this time I didn't screw it up. I don't think.
We are live on YouTube right now.
Live on the YouTube.
Live on YouTube.
We've got the live YouTube channel going on.
Yep.
We got the podcast, The Snack, going on simultaneously.
That's right.
This is a technological... Can I say a technological orgy? It feels like everything is coming into the same room. There's keys in a bowl. It's like YouTube's over here, Instagram's over here, the podcast is over here, and they're all getting together and getting it on.
Can I just say, for those of you that don't understand what Ryan's talking about, he's referring to the old school key parties, which allegedly happened like in the 70s, right?
Yeah, I wasn't born yet.
Yeah, like the swinging 70s way back in the day when people would go to someone's house and everybody threw their keys in a bowl and then you grabbed a pair of keys and whoever's keys you got, you left with that person for the night. And every time I hear that story, I always think to myself, you either had to live in like such a great looking neighborhood or someone was going home with a go. You know what I'm saying? You imagine you get to that point in your relationship where you're like, you know what, I love you and you're attractive to me and I'm attractive to you, but I think we need a little bit more.
See,
So what if you go out and you're at a swingers party and you grab the keys and you end up with someone and you're like, oh, you're not as attractive as my partner.
See, I would have always had a strategy in play. I've thought about this, Jay, long and hard. I would have had a strategy back then. You know, I was sick. I was 0 in 1976, so this just doesn't apply to
You were -6?
-6.
-6.
And then I got to 4, and then the 80s started. So there you go. Do your own math. Do your own math at home.
Do math at home.
But I always thought to myself, if I was in this situation, and I guess there's like, I don't know how these things work. It's a fishbowl, I'm going to guess, or maybe a punch bowl, and then there's female keys and male keys.
Right.
I would go for the cheaper car. Automatically, especially if I'm a woman. If I'm a woman and I'm looking to go home with a man, or, you know, I thought maybe at the time they had these parties so that everybody had a room in the house that they'd go to, nobody even left. But you go for the cheaper car. It's the cheaper car, especially if you're a woman. You know that the guy who's trying to compensate is driving the, you know, back then he's driving the Volkswagen Beetle. You want the guy with like the camper van, or the guy who put his Schwinn Bell into the bowl, hoping to get appreciated.
You're a weird man.
You never thought of these
You're
things.
just a weird guy.
Okay.
I never ever went down there.
Wasn't there a show? Do you remember there was a show for a while on television about that?
Yes.
It didn't last very long.
It lasted like not long.
But I watched it. I was just fascinated by that lifestyle in that time period.
Sure.
It, like that free love, all that kind of stuff that was going on in San Francisco and Malibu and Laurel County.
I'm reading, as you know, every day when I come in singing the Beastie Boys.
Oh, I hadn't heard.
I'm reading the Beastie Boys book.
No shit.
So I'm at the part now where they've just recorded Paul's Boutique. Actually, they've recorded Paul's Boutique and they're moving on to the next record. They're talking about the business around that album. And at the time that they made that album, the three of them rented a house together. And the house that they rented, it was called the G Spot because it had a big G on the front gate. And it was owned by a couple that made like TV shows in the 70s.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And at one point, there was this locked room, and they're like, and when you're in a band and you have all your days to yourself to just get high and do nothing, eventually you start to try and find stuff to do. So we broke into that room, and what we found was all their wardrobe from the 70s.
Oh, man.
Said so they were invited to Dolly Parton's birthday party.
Of course, why would we be?
At some mansion by some super manager. So they all decide they're going to wear these fly 70s outfits.
That's awesome.
So imagine the Hey Ladies video.
Yeah.
Hey ladies in the place, we're going, we're talking to you. That one.
Listen,
Hey
this guy,
ladies.
he's dropping rhymes.
Down.
We're 5 minutes in.
Great
he's dropping
song.
Rhymes.
Great song. Hey Ladies from Paul's Boutique. Very underrated album. So the guys are like, oh, these are the outfits we're going to wear. And they go their separate ways. And Yauk and MCA are like, hey man, you know what we'll do? Just let Mike Diamond show up wearing the outfits. We'll just dress regular.
No.
Yeah. And he's like,
That's a dick move.
and Mike Diamond's like, so I get there and I got this plush green velvet outfit on. And he's like, mind you, this is before people were looking to the 70s for fashion.
Yeah, so he just
Throwback clothes.
shows up like Superfly, and no one gets the bit.
Yeah, just super random. But this whole book is full of like really weird random stuff like that.
So you sent me an interview this week. Who was it? It was Sway.
Sway.
On Shade
45 on Sirius.
If you don't check that station out a little bit, sample a little bit.
It's good.
You're missing out. It's pure hip hop and rap music and what have you. But who was it with? It was with Sway and
And Ad Rock.
Ad Rock from the Beastie Boys.
Adam Horowitz.
And you know what was really interesting? Because I watched the whole thing. You sent it to me for one reason, and I listened to it for a completely different reason. What are you doing?
Just looking at the camera,
Are you okay?
making sure it's working.
All right, that's
Go ahead.
fair. So I'm listening to him tell his story about how he doesn't think current rappers should give a shit about what the past is all about. Like, it's okay to appreciate it. That was like he was saying, you should listen to it. You should, have an understanding of it. But if you don't, he's not going to sit there and say, you need to be one of those people that's appreciative of old school rap music and old school hip hop.
Yeah, he also said, nobody gives a shit what I think about current hip-hop.
Right. And I love that. The
Yeah.
fact that he said that, because I hate when I see, Ice Cube in an interview. Well, what do you think of... Okay, who cares?
He made a great point in this interview, and I kind of subscribe to this as well. I really enjoy new music, and there's a station I listen to. I listen to, for new music, I'll listen to like Indie 88 or Spotify for
Sure.
new release Fridays and
Yeah.
stuff like that. I found a band called Churches. They have an album called Love is Dead, which is fantastic. It's Churches spelled with a V. They've been around for a while, but I just discovered them this year. It's Churches.
Oh, so the U is a V. It's like an old school,
Yes.
Roman U.
Great song called Graffiti. And anyway, so I enjoy new music, and I enjoy discovering new music. But I always end up going back to my favorites. And I always felt guilty about that. It's like, am I not evolving as a
Yeah, I
as a
can see
broadcaster, blah,
I
blah,
can see
blah.
that, yeah.
But I love what Adam says in this video with Sway. He says, I don't give a shit about new music because there's so much old music that I haven't discovered yet.
And he's into like reggae now.
Yeah,
And he's just
well,
like,
he's always been into reggae, and they talk about a lot of that in the book, and a lot of like Lee Scratch Perry and stuff, guys like that really informed
Sure.
who they were coming up as musicians. And if you only ever thought of the Beastie Boys as the fight for your right to party guys
And Girls.
and maybe Sabotage,
Yeah.
and maybe
Girls was a big one.
yeah, Intergalactic,
Yeah.
like they're
Intergalactic.
yeah, they're so much deeper than that. They're so learned and well versed. Like they were in the recording studio when Run DMC did Walk This Way with Aerosmith.
Yeah.
Like they used like Adam Horowitz's his 808 machine to record a lot of stuff for Run DMC. And
Now, Run DMC and Beastie Boys went on a tour together
did.
back in the day. I remember that because I actually had a T-shirt that was from that tour when I was a kid.
No way.
I wasn't at the tour. I didn't get to go to the tour. I didn't get to go to the show. But I can only imagine what that tour between those two groups at the time would have been like.
Yeah.
And I always remember thinking to myself, like, we didn't have the internet back then, so it wasn't like I could, hey, let me Google Mom to see if they're coming to town.
Right.
Like, you barely hear about this kind of stuff because it was so fresh and it was so
Yeah.
different and it was so new that you'd have to just kind of find out from word of mouth or, maybe if you were lucky, Rap Pages or one of the old rap magazines might have a listing for a concert in it. Otherwise, you're in the dark until the concert's here and gone.
My sons, did I take both my sons? I just took my older son Ashton. His first ever hip hop show was the Up in Smoke tour
Oh, yeah. It was a good time.
with Eminem
I was there.
and Ice Cube.
We didn't hang.
Dre.
Yeah. Exhibit was part of that.
Exhibit was part of that.
Yeah.
It was insane. And what I remember about it was two things.
The Big Skull.
The big skull.
Yeah.
That's three things then. I remember the big skull. I
Took
remember
3 more than most.
I remember it took they were 2.5 hours late starting the show because they
Mm-hmm.
were bag searching literally everybody that got in.
Yeah.
And I remember driving home from the concert because my wife Sherry picked us up, and Asher brought a buddy, his buddy Lauren, and they're in the back. They're like, "Hey Jay, can we go to McDonald's? Can we get? We're super hungry. Like we're really hungry." And it was
no.
all the weed, like the secondhand
Yeah.
Stone, like totally got them, and they're like, "Oh, we're so hungry right now."
What did the wife say about that?
She's laughed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What can you do? You can't do much.
Yeah, I mean they were like 12 or 13. It was just
So for her, those who weren't there,
it
there
was
was
just
this
a lot of weed.
big skull that came down, and it puffed out smoke. And I'll guarantee you, a lot of that was probably weed smoke
You think?
into the crowd. Yeah.
You think the crew's gonna waste weed getting the crowd high?
Yes, it's probably some cheap weed, maybe some skunk weed, something that they weren't too fussy on,
Right.
like just for the fun and effect of it.
So-
was Ice Cube part of that too? I think he was.
When you were a teenager not smoking weed,
Hmm.
and you mentioned shitweed, did shitweed come from a certain part of town? Or was shitweed just shitweed?
So there was this little place, I think I've mentioned it on the pod before, called Mickey's, which was a pool hall down at 5 and 10, so here, Ontario, and Dundas in Mississauga. And if you ever bought there or in the parking lot, because that's, let's face facts, pool hall, prime territory for...
Sorry, I'm just kidding you. I love having this camera.
You can't help yourself.
I can. I'm
Can't
trying to
help
work
yourself.
out. I'm trying to work out the angles because it's a cool angle.
That was a place where people bought shitweed.
Okay, and you knew you were getting like skunk.
Yeah, like if you went closer to square one in Mississauga, you'd get finer product
Okay.
back then. But I knew all the people who dealt it too.
And I remember about buying like weed, and I grew up in Edmonton, so my friends, we smoked a lot of hash and oil and pot and weed, obviously. This is a great first YouTube, eh? Getting our faces and everything. So we smoked a lot of dope when we were kids.
Jay, if you could just put your fingerprints down by the camera,
right on,
that'd be great.
Just
right there.
Just right there.
Jay,
We smoked joints like
Jay.
that big. No, what I remember about it from being a kid was it was pre-cell phone. So you'd go like on the rumor that there was a guy across town at this arcade that would be able to hook you up. And what I remember most about it was getting on the bus with my friends, shooting the shit, laughing, Walkmans, maybe you had a boombox with you or something like that. But the finding dope to smoke was always the after, but it was always the adventure going to get it. Those are the memories that I remember. And I grew up in Edmonton too, man. So it was like super cold. It was like minus 30 degrees. So like there was no weird fashion thing in Edmonton. Like you were fashion, like you wore like the right jeans and stuff, but the heavier the parka you could get and the bigger the boots you could get, the cooler, like if you managed to score like an up north Arctic coat, you were like, dude, this guy's really fashionable, really fly.
For us, the one thing like was the holy grail for a very long period of time was to find the guy who had, and look, listen, I didn't do acid, but we had all heard about this to the point where it was one of those things you just wanted to find it and have it in your hand, and if you were brave enough to throw it in your mouth, you did it. It was cartoon acid.
Cartoon acid, yeah, that was like an urban myth.
It was totally an urban myth, and there was one that was you remember the
Donald Duck's on this one.
Animaniacs. So I think we must have one day we skipped school, and we must have taken 6 or 7 Mississauga transit buses. Same deal.
I thought you were about to say we must have taken 6 or 7 hits of acid.
No,
I was like, what?
And we finally found the guy, and I remember just being like super nervous about it. It was in my hand. I'm like, oh my god, my parents are gonna kill me. I can't do the cartoon acid. What if I wake up and the Animaniacs are in my room? I can't do it. Totally tripped out and threw it in the garbage.
Wow.
But again, it was all the adventure, right?
Yeah.
It was all
part of the adventure.
That, folks, is what life is all about.
We have just enough time. We'll wrap with this because it's Tuesday the 13th of November. It is International Kindness Day.
Yeah.
So
eat a bag of... No, I won't say that.
So I'll take this portion of the pod. Do something nice for someone today.
Oh, God. Do something nice. I almost helped an old lady across the street today.
Do something nice for someone every day if you're fortunate enough to do it. But if you can't do it today, it's an extra day.
Yeah, you know what you could do for me? Put me out of my misery segment.
Hey, listen, if you enjoy the pod, if you're checking this out on the YouTube video right now, make sure that you leave a comment below. If you're listening on iTunes, leave a review as well. Let us know if there's anything you ever want us to talk about, or you don't hear talked about enough, or you want to ask us a question about anything about my life specifically. Ryan might tell you something about his. He still hasn't done the quiz, by the way. I don't think I forgot.
What?
The Get to Know You quiz?
We're over time. Well, that'll be on tomorrow's show?
Tomorrow's show.
Get your hands away. What is that? What is that you're doing?
It's a World Kindness Day hug.
Oh, jeez. Don't let him touch you there, folks.
Thanks for watching and listening. Bye-bye.